The rain hammers down like bullets on the Atlanta asphalt. Chrome gleams under dying streetlights as a massive Harley-Davidson lies twisted, its engine still ticking hot. Underneath, a man in black leather bleeds into the storm drain. Car after car slows down. Headlights sweep over the Hells Angels patch on his jacket. Then they speed away. But wait. Bare feet splash through the puddles. A young woman in torn clothes runs toward the wreckage without hesitation. She doesn't know that this single moment will reveal a connection so incredible it will change everything she believes about fate. She doesn't know that the man she's about to save has been searching for someone like her his entire adult life. She doesn't know that her grandmother's bedtime stories are about to become terrifyingly real. Sometimes the universe has a way of bringing the right people together at exactly the right moment. Meet Zara Williams, 24 years old, whose smile could light up the darkest corners of Atlanta. Right now, she's waking up in one of those corners, a tent city sprawling beneath the Interstate 85 overpass. Her home is built from blue tarps and shopping cart frames. But inside, carefully protected in a plastic bag, sits her most precious possession, a faded photo of her grandmother in a crisp white nurse's uniform. Margaret Williams, the woman who raised her, the woman who taught her everything about kindness. Every morning, Zara unfolds a small tarnished pin, her grandmother's old nursing badge from Grady Hospital. She clips it to whatever clean shirt she has left. It's her daily reminder of Margaret's favorite saying, "Baby, when someone needs help, you help." That's what separates us from animals. The walk to downtown takes an hour, 3 miles through neighborhoods that pretend she doesn't exist. But Zara doesn't mind walking. It gives her time to remember Margaret's stories. Her favorite was about the little boy who changed everything. 30 years ago, Margaret was working the night shift when paramedics rushed in on a 7-year-old crash victim. His father died instantly. The boy was alone, bleeding, scared. That little boy was special, Margaret would tell Zara at bedtime. Even with all that pain, he said please and thank you to every nurse. Most kids his age would be screaming, but he just held my hand and asked if his daddy was okay. Margaret worked 18 hours straight to save him. When he finally stabilized, she gave him her spare nursing pin for courage. He promised he'd help people when he grew up. "I wonder what happened to him," Margaret would say, touching her own pin. "I hope he kept his promise." The Central Library appears ahead, Zara's second home. The librarians know her situation, but they've never made her feel ashamed. Here, she volunteers during children's story time. "Miss Zara!" squeals 5-year-old Timothy as she walks into the reading corner. "Are you going to read us about the brave princess again?" asks Emma, tugging on Zara's sleeve. These kids don't care that Zara's clothes are worn or that she smells like the outdoors. They just want stories, just like Zara once wanted stories from Margaret. "Today we're reading about helpers," Zara announces, settling into the reading chair. "About people who help others even when it's hard, just like Margaret always did." After story time, Zara uses the library computers. She still checks scholarship websites sometimes, though it feels pointless now. She'd been studying education at Georgia State University before Margaret got sick. Full scholarship, dean's list. Then came the cancer diagnosis, the treatments, the bills. Zara dropped out to care for Margaret full-time, used her tuition refund for medical expenses. When Margaret died 2 years ago, Zara had nothing left except stories and a nursing pin, but she refuses to be bitter. Walking back through the camp, Zara stops at Mrs. Patterson's tent. The elderly woman struggles with her medication schedule. "Let me help you sort these, Mrs. P," Zara says, organizing the pill bottles by time and date, skills Margaret taught her during those long hospital stays. Next tent over, Marcus is coughing again. Zara feels his forehead fever. She gives him her last bottle of water and makes him promise to see a doctor if it gets worse. "You're an angel, Zara," Marcus croaks, the same thing people used to call Margaret at the hospital. As evening approaches, Zara sits on her sleeping bag organizing her few possessions, the photo of Margaret, the nursing pin, a water-damaged notebook where she writes poetry by streetlight. Her latest poem reads, "Angels walk among us," Grandma said. But what if the angel has nowhere to sleep? Outside, thunder rumbles in the distance. Zara pulls on her only jacket, thin, patched, but clean. Margaret always said appearance mattered. People judge you in the first 5 seconds, baby. Give them something good to see. The rain starts as gentle drops, then builds to a steady rhythm on the tarp above her tent. But something about tonight feels different. The storm sounds angry, urgent. Margaret used to get nervous during storms like this. She'd pace around their old apartment, checking the windows, turning up the radio for weather updates. Storms bring out the worst in people, Margaret would say, but they also bring out the best. That's when angels have to work overtime. Zara never understood what she meant. The wind picks up, rattling the tent poles. Other camp residents huddle deeper into their shelters. Smart people stay inside during weather like this. But then, cutting through the storm's noise comes a sound that makes Zara's heart race. The roar of a motorcycle engine, then screeching brakes, then the sickening crash of metal against concrete. Silence. Margaret's voice echoes in her memory. Sometimes, baby, the universe sends exactly the right person to exactly the right place. Zara grabs her jacket and steps into the storm. She doesn't know that tonight, her grandmother's favorite bedtime story is about to become reality. The storm unleashes its full fury on Atlanta. Rain pounds the streets like hammers, turning intersections into rivers. Lightning splits the sky, illuminating empty sidewalks where smart people should be hiding indoors. But Zara Williams is running toward danger. The crash came from 2 blocks away, somewhere near the overpass entrance. Each footstep splashes through puddles that soak through her worn sneakers. Her thin jacket offers no protection against the downpour. The sound haunts her. Screeching brakes. Impact. Then that terrible silence that follows tragedy. Margaret's old stories flood back, how she'd tense up during storms like this, how she'd say motorcycles and rain were a deadly combination, how 30 years ago, on a night just like this, a father and son crashed on wet asphalt. The father didn't make it. Zara rounds the corner and stops dead. A massive Harley-Davidson lies twisted against a concrete barrier. Chrome reflects red and blue from a distant cell tower. The bike's engine ticks like a dying heartbeat as rain hisses against hot metal. Underneath the 800-pound machine, a man lies trapped. He's big, maybe 6'2", with graying hair and a full beard. His black leather jacket bears patches Zara recognizes from movies, Hell's Angels. The kind of patches that make people cross streets and lock car doors. Blood pools around his head, mixing with rainwater and motor oil. A white sedan approaches, headlights cutting through the storm. The driver slows, peers through the windshield, sees the patches, and accelerates away. 2 minutes later, a pickup truck stops. The passenger actually opens his door, steps halfway out, then notices the club colors. He jumps back in. Tires screech as they flee. Next comes a minivan, soccer mom behind the wheel. She rolls down her window just enough to take a photo with her phone, then speeds off to post it on social media. Car after car. The pattern repeats. Slow down, look, see the patches, leave. 20 minutes pass. No one stays. No one helps. The injured man's breathing grows shallow. His face, what Zara can see of it, has gone pale. Shock setting in. In this cold rain, hypothermia will follow. Margaret's voice whispers in the storm. When that little boy was lying in the rain, bleeding and scared, everyone drove past him too. His daddy was gone and he was all alone. Zara's hands shake. Not from cold, but from recognition. This scene, the storm, the motorcycle, the blood, the abandonment, it's exactly like Margaret's bedtime story. Too similar to be coincidence. But that's impossible. That accident happened 30 years ago. The little boy grew up and disappeared into foster care. Margaret never saw him again. Still, something about the injured man's face seems familiar, even unconscious and bloodied. Zara steps closer. Lightning illuminates details she missed before. His leather jacket isn't just any biker gear, it's expensive, custom-fitted. His boots are high quality, well-maintained. This isn't some stereotypical outlaw, and his hands, visible now, are clean, manicured, not the hands of someone who lives rough. The man's eyes flutter open, brown eyes, gentle despite the pain clouding them. "Hey," he whispers, noticing Zara. "You need to get away from here." His voice surprises her. Educated, articulate, nothing like what the patches suggest. "People see you with me?" Well, he continues, struggling for breath. "Not safe for someone like you." He's worried about her safety, while bleeding under a motorcycle, while abandoned by dozens of passing cars, just like the little boy in Margaret's stories who said please and thank you, even while fighting for his life. Zara touches the nursing pin at her throat. Margaret's pin. Margaret's reminder that helping others is what makes us human. "I'm not leaving you," she says, kneeling beside the wreckage. The man's eyes widen slightly. Something in her voice, her determination, seems to surprise him. "What's your name?" he asks. "Zara. Just focus on staying awake, okay?" "Zara," he repeats like he's memorizing it. "I'm Bear." Thunder crashes overhead. The storm's getting worse. If this man doesn't get help soon, he'll die here on the wet asphalt. Just another statistic. Just another person the world forgot. But Zara won't forget. Margaret didn't raise her to walk away from suffering. She studies the motorcycle pinning Bear's leg, 800 pounds of steel and chrome, impossible for someone her size to lift. But Margaret always said, "When someone's life is on the line, baby, you find a way. Physics and determination. That's all medicine really is." Zara spots a piece of broken concrete from the barrier, then a discarded metal pipe from nearby construction. Leverage. Just like in the physics classes she took before dropping out. She can do this. She has to do this. Because sometimes, just sometimes, the universe really does send the right person to the right place at exactly the right time. Even if that person lives in a tent and has nothing left to lose except her grandmother's belief in human kindness. Zara drops to her knees in the cold rain, her hands moving with surprising confidence. Margaret's voice guides her. "Airway, breathing, circulation. Always check the ABCs first, baby." Bear's pulse throbs weakly at his wrist. His breathing is shallow but steady. The head wound bleeds freely, but it's not arterial. She's seen worse during Margaret's home treatments for neighbors. The real problem is his left leg, pinned beneath the Harley's massive engine block. "Can you feel your toes?" Zara asks, gently checking his ankle for response. "Yeah," Bear grunts, wincing as he tries to move. "Leg's not broken, just stuck." Relief floods through her. No paralysis, no obvious fractures, but 800 pounds of motorcycle isn't moving without help, and she weighs maybe 120 soaking wet. Zara positions herself at the bike's frame, just like she'd seen construction workers do with heavy equipment. Plants her feet wide in the slick concrete for maximum leverage, takes a deep breath and lifts with everything she has. The Harley shifts maybe 2 inches, enough for Bear to wiggle his legs slightly, but nowhere near enough to free him completely. Her arms shake from the effort. The rain makes her grip slippery. This brute force approach isn't working. "You need to go," Bear says, watching her struggle against impossible physics. "Leave me here. Find a phone somewhere. Call 911. "I don't have a phone," Zara admits, stepping back to catch her breath. "And I'm not leaving you." Bear's expression shifts. Most people would have fled by now. The smart thing would be to find help and let professionals handle this. But something in Zara's voice, the same determination Margaret used with difficult patients, tells him she won't abandon him. "Listen," he says urgently. "People see you helping someone like me. It could be dangerous for you later. Some folks don't understand. Some folks are idiots." Zara interrupts, studying the problem like Margaret taught her to approach difficult cases. "There's always a solution, baby. Sometimes you just have to think sideways." The broken concrete catches her eye. Triangular piece, about the size of a brick, sharp enough to wedge firmly. She drags it over and positions it under the bike's frame as a fulcrum point. Next, the metal pipe from the construction site. 4 feet long, solid steel, abandoned by workers who probably never imagined it would save someone's life. Physics and determination. Just like Margaret always said. Zara slides the pipe under the motorcycle, using the concrete chunk as her leverage point. The principle is simple, something she learned in her physics classes before dropping out. Small force applied over a long distance equals large force applied over a short distance. "When I push down, you pull your leg out fast," she instructs. "I won't be able to hold it long." Bear nods, positioning himself for maximum pulling power despite his injuries. Zara throws her full weight onto her end of the pipe. The bike lifts 6 inches, then 8, then a full foot. "Pull!" she shouts through gritted teeth. Bear yanks his leg free just as Zara's strength gives out. The Harley crashes back down with a metallic bang that echoes through the storm. "Jesus Christ!" Bear breathes, staring at her in pure amazement. "How did you know to do that?" "My grandmother taught me." Zara immediately moves to examine his freed leg, checking for breaks or severe damage. No obvious fractures, just severe bruising and some road rash. She said medicine is just physics and determination. Something flickers in Bear's eyes at the mention of her grandmother. Recognition? Curiosity? Hard to tell in the shifting stormlight, but he's studying her face more intently now. Zara tears strips from her jacket, her only good jacket, the one she was saving for job interviews, to bandage his head wound. The techniques come naturally. Muscle memory from watching Margaret treat neighbors who couldn't afford emergency room visits. Her movements are precise. Confidence. She cleans the wound with the cleanest rainwater she can find, applies pressure to stop the bleeding, then wraps it securely but not too tight. "You definitely know what you're doing," Bear observes, watching her work with growing fascination. "Your grandmother, was she a nurse?" 30 years at Grady Hospital, Zara says, adjusting the bandage to ensure it won't slip. "Best trauma nurse they ever had, according to everyone who worked with her." Bear's breath catches audibly. "Grady Hospital? You know it?" Bear pauses, studying her face more carefully in the flickering streetlight. The way she moves her hands, the gentleness combined with competence. "What was her name?" "Margaret Williams." Zara finishes securing the bandage with strips of cloth. "Why do you ask?" The bear's eyes go wide. He stares at Zara like he's seeing a ghost or an angel. "Margaret Williams," he whispers, his voice thick with disbelief and wonder. "She had this way of touching people when they were hurt, gentle but confident. Made you feel safe even when everything was falling apart. Just like what? Just like you're doing right now." Something electric passes between them, a connection neither fully understands yet, but both feel in their bones. "Your grandmother." Bear continues carefully, his voice growing stronger. "Did she ever tell stories about her patients? Specifically about a little boy she saved in a motorcycle accident?" Zara's hands freeze mid-motion. Her heart starts racing. "How could you possibly know about that?" "Because I was 7 years old," Bear says quietly, his voice carrying 30 years of memory. "Motorcycle accidents on a night just like this. My dad didn't make it, but this angel in scrubs worked all night to save me." The words hit Zara like a physical blow. Margaret's favorite bedtime story. The little boy who said please and thank you even while bleeding. The one who promised to help people when he grew up. The one Margaret wondered about for 30 years. "That's impossible," she breathes. But even as she says it, she knows it's true. "She gave me her spare nursing pin for courage," Bear continues, his eyes never leaving her face. "Said it would remind me that angels were watching over me, that someday I'd be strong enough to help other people." Zara's hand flies instinctively to her throat, where Margaret's nursing pin hangs beneath her soaked shirt. Her fingers trace its familiar shape, the same pin Margaret touched every time she told that story. "She kept that second pin," Bear says softly, noticing her gesture. "Didn't she?" Tears mix with rain on Zara's face. "You're him. You're the little boy from Grandma's stories. And you're Margaret's granddaughter." Bear's voice breaks with 30 years of accumulated emotion. "She saved my life 30 years ago, and now you're saving it again." Sirens wail in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Red and blue lights reflect off wet asphalt as the ambulance rounds the corner. Bear struggles to reach his wallet with shaking hands, his movements urgent despite his injuries. "Zara, you saved my life. Please, let me—" "No!" Her voice cuts through the storm, firm but gentle. "I didn't help you for money." "Then why?" Bear asks, genuinely puzzled. In his experience, everyone wants something, everyone has an angle. "Because you needed help," Zara says simply. "That's what my grandmother taught me. You help people because it's right, not because of what you might get back." Bear stares at her, speechless. It's exactly what Margaret used to say, word for word. The paramedics swarm the scene, 2 EMTs who move with practiced efficiency. They treat Bear with unusual respect for someone in biker leathers, calling him sir and handling him carefully. "Sir, we need to get you to Grady Hospital," the lead paramedic says, checking Bear's vitals. Possible concussion, definite road rash, but you're stable. Grady Hospital. Bear looks at Zara meaningfully. The same hospital where your grandmother worked. It's the closest trauma center, the paramedic explains, preparing the stretcher. Instead of cash, Bear pulls out a business card from his wallet. The cardstock feels expensive, even in the rain heavy, with raised lettering that catches the emergency lights. Take this, he insists, pressing it into Zara's palm. Please, I owe you more than you know. Zara wants to refuse, but something in his voice stops her. This isn't about money. This is about something deeper. Find me when you're ready, Bear says as the paramedics load him onto the stretcher. I've been looking for Margaret's family for 15 years. The words send chills down Zara's spine. 15 years? He's been searching for them? What do you mean? She calls out. But they're already wheeling him toward the ambulance. Bear grabs her hand one last time, his grip surprisingly strong for someone who was just trapped under a motorcycle. Margaret made me promise to help people, he says urgently. I kept that promise, Zara. Everything I've done since that night, it was all because of her. I don't understand. The card, Bear calls out as they load him into the ambulance. Look at the card when you get somewhere dry. The doors slam shut. The ambulance disappears into the storm, its sirens fading until only thunder remains. Zara stands alone in the rain, holding a business card she can't read and questions she can't answer. The walk back to camp takes forever. Her torn jacket, the one she ripped up to bandage Bear's wounds, hangs in wet strips. Rain soaks through to her skin. Her shoes squelch with every step, and she can feel a cold coming on. By the time she reaches her tent, her teeth are chattering uncontrollably. Inside her makeshift shelter, Zara changes into her only dry clothes, a faded t-shirt and sweatpants that have seen better days. She wraps herself in her thin sleeping bag, but the chill goes deeper than her bones. She's sick, really sick. The kind of exhaustion that comes after your body pushes beyond its limits. But none of that matters right now. Under the weak light of her battery-powered lantern, Zara finally examines Bear's business card. The heavy cardstock reads, The Margaret Williams Foundation, her grandmother's name, in elegant raised lettering. Below that, Benjamin Bear Morrison, founder and director. And underneath, second chances for those who need them most. Zara stares at the card until the letters blur. Bear named his foundation after Margaret, after her grandmother. She flips the card over. In Bear's handwriting, For Margaret's angel, let me help like she helped. Bear! The implications crash over her like a wave. This isn't a coincidence. Bear has been honoring Margaret's memory for years. The little boy from the bedtime stories grew up and built something in her grandmother's name. Fever makes her thoughts fuzzy, but one thing is crystal clear. Margaret's favorite story just became real. And somehow, impossibly, Zara is living inside it. Outside, the storm continues to rage, but inside her tent, holding Bear's card, Zara feels something she hasn't felt since Margaret died. Hope. 3 days later, Bear Morrison sits in his private room at Grady Hospital, his left leg elevated in a cast. But his mind isn't on his injuries. It's an impossible miracle that happened during the storm. Margaret Williams' granddaughter saved his life. The same Margaret who held his hand when he was 7. The same Margaret who gave him courage when he thought he was going to die. The same Margaret he's been searching for since he turned 18 and aged out of foster care. Bear's bedside table holds a thick manila folder marked Margaret Williams Research. For 15 years, he's hired private investigators, contacted the hospital's alumni association, posted on social media, even hired a genealogy company to trace her family tree. Nothing. Margaret Williams had vanished after retirement like she never existed. His business partner, Tommy, sits in the visitor's chair listening to Bear explain the connection for the 3rd time. Let me get this straight, Tommy says, shaking his head. The homeless girl who saved you is the granddaughter of the nurse who saved you as a kid. Her name is Zara, Bear corrects. And yes, I know it sounds impossible. Bear, that's not impossible. That's... Tommy pauses, searching for words. That's divine intervention. Bear opens the hospital room's small safe and pulls out 2 items he's carried for 30 years. A faded hospital bracelet with Morrison Benjamin, age 7 inches, printed in blue ink, and a small, tarnished nursing pin. Margaret gave me this for courage, he says, holding up the pin. Said it would remind me that angels were watching over me. Tommy examines the pin. You've never told me about this. Some things are too important to share casually. Bear's voice carries 3 decades of gratitude. Every scholarship we've given, every life we've changed through the foundation, it was all because of what she did for me. His phone buzzes with notifications, board members returning his calls, lawyers responding to his requests for emergency meetings, accountants preparing financial reports. Bear has been busy since the accident. Sir, Dr. Carter knocks and enters. I have some information about the young woman who helped you. Zara Williams? Bear sits up straighter. You know her? She volunteers here sometimes, in the children's ward. The staff loves her, says she has healing hands just like her grandmother used to. Her grandmother worked here? Margaret Williams, legendary nurse. Before my time, but everyone still talks about her. Dr. Carter smiles. Actually, there's a memorial garden for her in the courtyard. Margaret passed away 2 years ago. Bear's heart sinks. 2 years. He'd been so close. The memorial has a visitor's log, Dr. Carter continues. I thought you might want to see it. She hands him a photocopied page, dozens of entries from grateful patients and families, but one name appears monthly, always with the same message. For Miss Margaret, who taught me that healing begins with kindness, still keeping my promise. B.M. Bear stares at his own handwriting. He's been visiting Margaret's memorial for 2 years without knowing it was her. There's more, Dr. Carter says gently. According to the memorial records, Margaret's granddaughter plans to continue her legacy of helping others. Bear closes his eyes, feeling Margaret's presence in the room. After 30 years of searching, the universe finally brought them together. Now it's time to keep his promise. After 3 days of fever and doubt, Zara finally feels strong enough to make the journey to Grady Hospital. She carries Margaret's old stethoscope in her backpack, not sure why, but feeling like her grandmother would want her to have it for this moment. The hospital lobby buzzes with familiar energy. Zara has been here before as a volunteer, but today everything feels different, charged with possibility. At the information desk, an elderly volunteer named Mrs. Patterson brightens when Zara asks for Bear's room number. Oh, you're here to see Mr. Morrison. He's been asking about someone named Margaret Williams for days. Are you family? Not exactly, Zara says carefully. I helped him after his accident. Mrs. Patterson studies Zara's face more closely. Wait a minute. What did you say your last name was? Williams. Zara Williams. The elderly woman's eyes filled with tears. Oh, honey, your grandmother was a saint. I worked alongside Margaret for 20 years in the cardiac unit. She talked about her granddaughter constantly, said you were going to change the world just like she did. Zara's breath catches. You knew her? Knew her? Child Margaret Williams was the best nurse this hospital ever had. Come with me. There's something you need to see. Mrs. Patterson leads Zara through corridors she's never explored, past the main building to a hidden courtyard. Tucked behind the emergency wing lies a small garden oasis, flowers, benches, and a simple memorial plaque. Margaret Williams, RN, who taught us that healing begins with kindness. Zara stares at the plaque, tears blurring her vision. She never knew this existed. The staff created this after she passed, Mrs. Patterson explains. Look, there's a visitor's log. Next to the memorial bench sits a weatherproof book. Zara opens it with trembling hands and finds pages of entries from people whose lives Margaret touched. Doctors she mentored, patients she saved, families she comforted. But one set of entries, repeated monthly for 2 years, stops her cold. For Miss Margaret, who gave me life and purpose, still keeping my promise. B.M. The entries go back exactly 2 years, right to when Margaret died. Someone with the initials B.M. has been visiting regularly. Benjamin Morrison, Bear. Mrs. Patterson? Zara whispers. How long has someone been leaving these B.M. entries? Oh, that gentleman? About 2 years now. Always comes alone, always brings fresh flowers. Never stays long, but he's very respectful. We figured he was a former patient. As they walk back toward the main hospital, 3 current staff members approach. Word has spread that Margaret's granddaughter is visiting. Your grandmother saved my career, says a young nurse. I was ready to quit during my first year. Margaret sat me down and reminded me why I became a nurse in the first place. She established our patient comfort fund, adds another. Whenever families couldn't afford basic necessities, Margaret made sure they were taken care of. But Dr. Carter shares the most startling information. About 10 years ago, a man came looking for Margaret. Said he was a patient she'd saved as a child. We had to tell him she'd retired, but he left his business card in case we ever located her family. Dr. Carter produces a card identical to the one Bear gave Zara, the Margaret Williams Foundation. He's been looking for us, Zara realizes, for years. When Zara finally reaches Bear's hospital room, she stops in the doorway, stunned. The walls are covered with photos and documents she never expected. Pictures of Margaret with a young Bear in his hospital bed. Newspaper clippings about foundation scholarship recipients. Medical reports from his childhood treatment. And prominently displayed in the center, a framed copy of Margaret's nursing school graduation photo, the exact same one Zara keeps in her tent. "You've been looking for us," she says quietly. The Bear's eyes filled with tears. "For 15 years. I hired investigators, contacted every hospital Margaret ever worked at, even tried Facebook and Ancestry websites. I had so much I wanted to tell her." He opens his bedside drawer and pulls out a small, tarnished nursing pin identical to the one hanging around Zara's neck. "She gave me this when I was 7, Bear explains, his voice breaking. "Said it would give me courage and remind me that angels were watching over me." Zara pulls out her own pin. They're clearly a matched set, given by the same loving hands to the two people Margaret cherished most. "Every scholarship, every program, every life we've changed," Bear continues, gesturing to a massive binder on his table. "It all started because of what Margaret did for me. I named the foundation after her, but I never got to tell her. Never got to show her what her kindness grew into." He opens the binder. Page after page of success stories. Scholarship recipients who became doctors, nurses, teachers, families lifted out of poverty, communities transformed. 847 scholarships awarded over 15 years, Bear explains. 2,300 people directly helped. 4 community health centers were built. And it all traces back to one night when a nurse refused to give up on a scared little boy. Zara can barely speak through her tears. She would have been so proud. "There's more," Bear says, pulling out legal documents his lawyer prepared. "Zara, I don't want to just give you a scholarship or a job. I want to give you something bigger." He takes a shaky breath. "I want to name you as my successor. Full control over a $12 million endowment. The future director of the Margaret Williams Foundation." The room spins. "Bear, I'm homeless. I don't have a college degree. Margaret was a poor girl from rural Georgia who became Atlanta's most respected nurse," Bear interrupts. "She succeeded because of who she was, not where she started, and you're exactly who she was." "But I don't understand. Why me?" Bear smiles through his tears. "Because 30 years ago, Margaret saved a little boy who promised to help people. Tonight, that little boy gets to save Margaret's granddaughter. The circle completes itself." Bear pulls out a thick folder marked "The Margaret Williams Legacy Project" and spreads architectural plans across his hospital bed. The blueprints show a vision so ambitious it takes Zara's breath away. "I don't just want to give you money, Zara. I want to build something that makes Margaret's impact permanent." The first set of plans reveals a state-of-the-art medical facility. "The Margaret Williams Institute for Compassionate Care," Bear explains, his voice gaining strength with each word. "A nursing school specifically designed to train healthcare workers who understand what it means to serve the underserved." Zara studies the blueprints. Classrooms, simulation labs, student housing, a full teaching hospital. "Bear, this is massive. Full scholarships for students from difficult backgrounds," Bear continues. "People like Margaret were, people like you are, people who understand struggle and can bring real compassion to healthcare." He hands her a detailed job description. "I want you to be the Institute's first director of community outreach. But first, you'd complete an accelerated nursing program through Emory University. We've already discussed creating a special track 2 years of intensive training with mentorship from Atlanta's best nurses." The financial package he outlines seems impossible. Full tuition and living expenses, a $40,000 annual salary during training, comprehensive health insurance, and an $85,000 starting salary upon graduation as director. But the real value, Bear adds, is the $2 million annual budget you'd control to develop programs that help people the way Margaret helped me. Zara's head spins. Bear, this is beyond anything I ever dreamed. But why me? There are people with experience, credentials, proven track records. Because Margaret didn't choose me for my credentials, Bear replies firmly. She chose me because I needed help, and she saw something worth saving. That's exactly how I see you. Dr. Carter enters the room with perfect timing. Mr. Morrison, I have good news. Grady Hospital's board approved the partnership proposal. We want to be the Institute's primary clinical training site. She turns to Zara. We've been looking for ways to honor your grandmother's memory. This is perfect. Our nursing staff is excited to mentor students who share Margaret's values. Bear shows Zara letters from Foundation Scholarship recipients, over 800 people whose lives changed because of programs inspired by Margaret's kindness. Each letter tells a story of transformation. Former homeless individuals now working as medical assistants, recovering addicts who became counselors, foster kids who earned nursing degrees. Imagine scaling this up, Bear says. Instead of helping hundreds, we could help thousands. Margaret's approach to compassionate care could become the standard for health care across the Southeast. Tommy enters with updates on the Foundation's expansion plans. The board is fully behind this, Bear. We've got commitments for $500,000 in additional annual funding from medical device companies who want to support the mission. There's more, Bear continues, pulling out partnership agreements. The local Hells Angels chapter voted to make this their primary charity focus. They're pledging $100,000 annually for 10 years, plus volunteer labor for construction and maintenance. The scope keeps expanding. Bear shows Zara plans for Margaret's Memorial Garden expansion, a full healing campus where healthcare workers can retreat when they're exhausted or overwhelmed. A place where nurses and doctors can remember why they chose this profession, Bear explains. Meditation spaces, quiet areas for reflection, all centered around Margaret's memorial. The timeline he presents is carefully structured. 6 months of prerequisite courses while living in transitional housing and working part-time with the Foundation. Then 2 years of accelerated nursing school with full support. By graduation, the Institute will be ready for its first Director of Community Outreach. You won't be alone, Bear emphasizes. Dr. Carter has agreed to be your personal mentor. Tommy will handle business operations while you focus on learning. I'll be there every step to ensure you have everything Margaret would have wanted you to have. He shows her architectural plans for a 50,000 square foot facility. Not just nursing education, but social work, mental health counseling, community health programs, a comprehensive approach to healing. Bear sets the paperwork in front of Zara along with an expensive pen. I know this is overwhelming. Take time to think about it, but understand this isn't just about you. It's about continuing something Margaret started, something bigger than both of us. Zara stares at the documents, her hands shaking. Bear, 2 years ago, when Grandma was dying, she made me promise something. She said, "Baby, don't let my work die with me. Find a way to keep helping people, even when I'm gone." I thought that promise was impossible to keep. She looks around the hospital room. The same building where Margaret saved lives for 30 years, where she saved Bear, where she built a legacy of compassion. If I do this, I want to do it right. I want to make her proud. I want to prove that her faith in people wasn't misplaced. Margaret is already proud, Bear says softly. She raised a granddaughter who stopped to help a stranger in the rain, just like she taught you. Everything else is just giving you the tools to help more people. Zara picks up the pen. The same hands that saved Bear's life now ready to sign documents that will transform her future. She touches Margaret's nursing pin at her throat and feels her grandmother's presence stronger than ever. "This feels like destiny," she whispers. "Maybe it is," Bear replies, "or maybe it's just what happens when good people find each other." Zara takes a deep breath and signs her name, committing to a path that will honor Margaret's memory and extend her legacy of healing to thousands of lives. The circle of compassion that began 30 years ago in this very hospital is finally complete. 6 months later. Zara Williams sits at her kitchen table in Margaret Williams housing, surrounded by nursing textbooks and anatomy charts. She wears scrubs embroidered with Emory University nursing student, and her grandmother's nursing pin gleams on her collar. The cramped tent under the overpass feels like a lifetime ago. Her one-bedroom apartment is modest but warm. Margaret's photo sits on the nightstand next to Zara's certificate for completing prerequisite courses with highest honors. On the wall hangs her acceptance letter to Emory's accelerated nursing program. The transformation runs deeper than housing. Zara's cheeks have filled out from regular meals, her hair shines with health. Her eyes hold the confident spark of someone who knows her purpose. Margaret Williams Housing has become more than transitional apartments. It's a healing community. 40 families now have stable homes while pursuing healthcare careers or recovering from medical crises. Zara leads weekly support groups, combining nursing school lessons with Margaret's wisdom about helping others. The success rate speaks for itself. 94% of residents transition to permanent housing within 18 months. At Emory University, Zara stands at the top of her nursing class despite being the only student who started homeless. Her clinical rotations at Grady Hospital, the same halls where Margaret worked, earn glowing reviews from supervisors. She has intuitive healing abilities, writes her lead instructor. Patients trust her immediately. It's like she inherited her grandmother's gift. Professor Martinez pulls Zara aside after advanced trauma care class. I've been teaching for 20 years. Your approach to patient care reminds me of the legendary nurses from previous generations. You understand that healing is about more than medical procedures. Construction begins on the Margaret Williams Institute for Compassionate Care. The groundbreaking ceremony draws hundreds. Former colleagues of Margaret's, Hell's Angels members in dress leathers, scholarship recipients from the foundation, and city officials who recognize transformative community investment. Bear and Zara break ground together using a ceremonial shovel engraved with Margaret's philosophy. Healing begins with kindness. Local news covers the story extensively. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution runs a front-page feature, From Homeless to Healer. Granddaughter continues nurse's legacy. The article details how one act of compassion during a storm created ripples that now promise to transform healthcare education. Applications flood in from across the Southeast. Young people from homeless shelters, recovery programs, and foster care all seeking the same second chance Zara received. The Margaret Williams Foundation experiences explosive growth under Zara's community outreach leadership. In 6 months, they identify and support 200 new scholarship recipients, double their usual pace. Zara's recruitment strategy differs from traditional approaches. Instead of college fairs and online applications, she visits homeless camps, community centers, and recovery meetings. She speaks from experience, not theory. I lived in a tent 6 months ago, she tells a group at a women's shelter. If someone like me can become a nurse, any of you can too. At Grady Hospital, the Margaret Williams Care Protocol transforms patient experience. The approach emphasizes dignity, family involvement, and compassionate communication, everything Margaret modeled during her career. Patient satisfaction scores increase 40%. Staff burnout decreases significantly. Other hospitals send teams to study Grady's methods. Dr. Reynolds, Grady's chief of staff, presents the data at a medical conference. When healthcare workers understand struggle personally, they provide more compassionate care. The Margaret Williams approach isn't just good ethics, it's good medicine. The annual Ride for Margaret motorcycle rally raises $300,000. 500 bikers participate, riding from across the Southeast to honor the nurse who saved one of their brothers. The most powerful image goes viral. Leather-clad Hell's Angels reading storybooks to children in Grady's pediatric ward, the same ward where Margaret once worked. Comments pour in from around the world, praising the unexpected partnership. Emory University incorporates the Margaret Williams approach into its nursing curriculum. Other nursing schools request consultation on implementing similar programs. Zara presents at the National Nursing Education Conference, sharing Margaret's philosophy with thousands of educators. Her presentation, Compassion as Clinical Skill, receives a standing ovation. Statistical impact grows monthly. 200 healthcare scholarships awarded, 40 families stably housed, 15 program graduates employed in healthcare, 89% job placement rate, $4.2 million raised, 15 hospitals implementing Margaret Williams protocols. 3 other cities, Birmingham, Nashville, and Charlotte, launched similar programs with Zara consulting on development. Margaret's Memorial Garden expands into a full healing campus. Meditation areas, family consultation rooms, and a memorial wall where patients leave gratitude messages create sacred space for reflection. Over 1,000 notes honor healthcare workers who demonstrated Margaret-level compassion. The garden became a pilgrimage site for nurses across Georgia. Bear steps back from daily operations, taking the title Founder Emeritus, while Zara assumes increasing leadership. At the Foundation's annual dinner, he makes an announcement that brings tears to every eye. Margaret saved my life twice, once as a child, and again by raising the granddaughter who would complete the circle of her compassion. The mayor declares Margaret Williams Day, honoring the nurse whose legacy continues healing Atlanta. But the most meaningful transformation remains invisible to cameras and crowds. A homeless girl who learned she could change the world, just like her grandmother always believed. 2 years later, graduation day. Zara Williams stands at the podium of Emory University's nursing graduation ceremony. Her cap and gown pristine, her grandmother's nursing pin catching the auditorium lights. Behind her, a banner reads, Margaret Williams Institute for Compassionate Care, first graduating class. 24 new nurses sit in the front rows, all from backgrounds of hardship, all trained in Margaret's philosophy of compassionate care. 2.5 years ago, I was homeless, hopeless, and convinced my life had no purpose. Zara begins, her voice carrying across the packed auditorium. Then one stormy night, I learned that everything my grandmother taught me about kindness was about to come full circle in ways I never imagined. In the audience, Bear Morrison sits in the front row, no longer the injured man she pulled from under a motorcycle, but her partner in honoring Margaret's legacy. Beside him sit Tommy, Dr. Carter, and Mrs. Patterson, the extended family that grew from one act of compassion during a storm. Behind them, 24 families beam with pride. Formerly homeless individuals, recovered addicts, foster care survivors, all now watching their children enter healthcare with Margaret's values as their foundation. Today marks the official opening of the Margaret Williams Institute for Compassionate Care, the university president announces. The first nursing school in America specifically designed to recruit and train healthcare workers from underserved communities. The 50,000-square-foot facility will train 100 new nurses annually, each committed to serving populations often forgotten by mainstream healthcare. Zara has been appointed the Institute's founding director at age 26, making her the youngest department head in Emory's history. But her qualifications aren't measured in years. They're measured in lives changed and circles of kindness completed. After the ceremony, Zara and Bear visit Margaret's expanded memorial campus. The Healing Garden now spans 2 acres, with meditation spaces, reflection areas, and the original memorial bench where it all began. They place fresh flowers at Margaret's memorial, where a new plaque has been added. Margaret Williams, RN whose kindness to one child created a legacy that heals thousands. As they prepare to leave, a young boy approaches hesitantly. He's clearly a patient, wearing a hospital gown under his jacket, his mother holding his hand nervously. "Excuse me," he says to Zara, "are you the nurse lady they named the school after?" Zara kneels to his level, just as Margaret once knelt beside a frightened 7-year-old Bear. "No, sweetie. The school is named after my grandmother, but maybe someday when you're all grown up, you'll help people too." "I want to be a nurse like her," the boy says, his eyes bright with the same determination Bear once showed. "Then you will be," Zara promises, echoing words Margaret spoke to a scared little boy 30 years ago. As they walk the boy and his mother back to the pediatric ward, the same ward where Margaret once worked, where Bear once recovered. The camera pulls back to show 3 generations of kindness walking together. Margaret's spirit lives on in these hallways, carried forward by the grandson she saved and the granddaughter she raised. The circle of compassion that began with one nurse's refusal to give up has become an eternal cycle of healing that will touch countless lives for generations to come. Zara's final words. "My grandmother used to say that angels walk among us, but we have to have eyes to see them. Sometimes the person you help today becomes the angel who helps thousands tomorrow. Sometimes the stranger you save becomes the family you never knew you needed. Every act of kindness creates ripples that spread farther than you can imagine. The homeless person you help might become a doctor. The child you encourage might grow up to change the world. The stranger you save might spend their life honoring your memory, So I challenge you, be someone's Margaret Williams. Be the person who stops when others walk by. Be the kindness that changes everything. Because you never know, the life you save today might save your family tomorrow. What act of kindness will you choose today? Share your story in the comments below. And if this touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to spread Margaret's legacy of compassion. Let's create a world where no good deed is forgotten.